Okay, I don't feel like working right now, but we're going to do one little thing to get us ready for writing the shader code. So as I'm looking at this, it's going to be really annoying to have, like, if we have this thing called UI frags, uifrags.paint5d, uifrags. Whatever other system, right? This is the way we're going to namespace all the user interface fragment shaders. One of the problems that is going to happen from this is that namespacing things, either our namespaces will get really big, right? They'll be triply namespaced, right? uifrags.paint5d stuff, or alternatively, what we could do is say, oh, well, for every editor, you could just reuse the same namespace. So uifrags.paint5d, the namespace used inside this file could just be uifrags. Okay. And then the and yeah, you could just call the namespaces in there UI frags, right? And then because you're never going to have a uifrags.paint5d shader and a uifrags whatever other editor shader, right? Because you can only have one. Each piece of shader code represents a different editor, right? So you'd never have to worry about triple namespacing it. However, I already realized we're going to need some type of utility functions in uifrags. Some like generic uifrags utility functions that aren't namespaced to paint5d or whatever other editor. And that could make the namespacing and categorization confusing. So we're going to make a thing called Uishare, and that's going to be the shared UI fragment shader code. We're going to put this like right over here somewhere. So we're going to stub that in and get this build working, and then we're going to be done for today, right? We're just gonna do a little bit, and then we're going to get on out of here. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a data file, Uishare user interface shared fragment code namespace. Okay, so that's what Uishare is going to be, right? So we're going to save this as uishare.d._. Then we're going to make another one, new. We're going to go over here and we're going to save this as .f. So uishare.f._. And then let's just throw the boilerplate in. So we're thinking that this Uishare, it doesn't need any initialization code, right? It doesn't really need any code, right? It just needs some boilerplate and maybe some unit tests eventually. But besides that, really nothing, right? So nssbp paste for our boilerplate, and then the boilerplate, we're going to find all these tokens and replace them with the correct case. So Uishare halt, because that's a private function. Lowercase, because it's a private function. Lowercase public, so Uishare, right? And then over here, part of the silence system. So we're thinking it's going to go between UI lists and UI frags, right? Because the UI frags are fragment shaders for all of the different editors. Therefore, it needs to use this general utility, and this general utility is going to need to know about the UI lists, right? Okay. Opening this up, let's go look for, I don't know where we're looking. We need to go into the silence system, and we need to add Uishare into our list, right? So if we look at Uishare, it's going to be between UI lists and UI frags, right? So we just want to make an insertion here and say, okay, we got a U08 Uishare, and it's going to be right here. Then we also want to do the same thing here, so we'll just duplicate this, call this Uishare, right? And we could make a description, right? user interface shared frag shader. Right, so user interface shared fragment shader code. So this is UI frags, and UI frags uses UI share, and UI share can use UI list. So quite a lot of chaining. Okay, so this right here, so we'll put a unit test in here for some of these shared functions. And then the next thing you want to do is just get this working, right? So fortunately for us, it's not too much to stub this in because of where it is close on the end of the list. Now you notice that this is not, we need one more thing here though. So we need a new file called, we need the actual shader code file. Right, and we'll call this one uishare.fra._, right? It's a fragment shader file. And the fragment shader file can be unit tested by the function file. And that is going to determine the order that we're going to include things in over here. So anyways, shared UI frag code, right? Shared UI frag code is basically what it is. So let's take this define and let's put this over here. And let's also cluster things based on what needs our attention right now. So that way when we're looking at this later, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57. When we're looking at this list later, this list is kind of what I've been glancing at when I'm trying to figure out what I need to be doing. So we're going to keep that indent. We're going to keep these gaps here, here, and here. These gaps, we're going to keep those gaps for now because it's going to help us focus on what we need to do later. Okay, so let's go open our... what the heck do you call it? Let's go open libchan, right? Libchan bottom top, right? And let's also go open up fmacros, right? So fmacros, top and bottom. Also, let's put this in a new editor if we can, right? Because we're going to close all this stuff once we're done with it. So let's actually throw these into libchan bottom top. Let's throw these into a different thing. So, because all these folders files I have open here, I want them open when I'm ready to do work, and I'm going to save them as like a save state eventually. But this stuff, once I'm done inserting the code, I'm going to be done looking at this. So I just want to open this right now and forget about it later. So 56. So this is going to be a 57. Okay, so we have 57 systems total now, and now we can just look for, we want to look for UI lists and UI frags, because UI share is going to go between there, right? So we're looking for a 50-something, right? So we can just highlight this. So 54 is the new one, right? So let's just highlight this. And now when we're scrolling through here, we should get stopped by a piece of color. There we go. So right here, the 53 is our UI list. So we're going to duplicate this UI list. It doesn't need to be changed, right? So it's between UI lists and UI frags, which we're going to make our insertion, right? So we're going to take this, we're going to paste it, okay? Once we've pasted it, instead of it being UI list, it's going to be called UI frags. And we need to renumber it, but also we need to include, I'm surprised none of these have like a ./ I thought, Oh, I see. My other includes, okay, well, dots / UI frags dot fra dot underscore. Okay. So this include is a pattern breaker. So we're just going to say, you know, right, so this right here is a pattern breaker because usually we don't have this extra little chunk. And so we want to keep track of that so we notice that when we're doing things. UI frags is... Yeah, I might be a little bit too tired for this. That's not UI frags, it's UI share. This is it needs to be UI share. UI share. I didn't rename it yet. UI share. Okay. Why did I do it that? I don't know why I did that. Okay, so UI list is 53. Then this is 54. Okay, and then this one here, UI frags, that's 55. This is 56. And the last one should be 57. Okay, let's move down, and let's make the same insertion, right? So down here, in the crap. Let's go back up to the other section here. So the this code here is function, right? Because we use those, we can use those, we can compile those that fragment shader code as C99 code, or as fragment shader code, and we unit test it. So therefore, it actually belongs included in the functions section. My bad. So when we're looking where to include this, right? We got okay. So here we got this, and here's UI share.data. Oh God, I'm too tired for this, I think. Here's my functions. Okay, so first of all, get rid of that extra color that was messing me up here. And we're going to steal this stuff, right? So we're going to steal this, and we're going to take this pattern breaker, and we're going to include it here. Okay, yes. And we're going to, hold on, I'm going to take off my sweater. So I can't regulate my temperature. I don't know why. Okay. So UI lists dot functions, and then we have this right here is UI share, right? So UI share. So now let's just make sure that the colors are in the correct order. So let's go this, that, and that, right? Let's just do these three colors here. Okay, so this is now 54, right? So UI share is 54. 55. 56. 57. Okay. So now, if we scroll back up, though, right, we should see the same cluster of three colors, right? 53, 54, and 55. And 53, 54, and 55. Okay. And the orange one has an extra little thing here within the function section, but not in the data section, right? Okay. Cool. So let's go close this, and we'll actually let's look at this. Is this correct? 57. We're going up to 57 and 57 match here, and the 57 is the highest system index, so that's good. Okay. So in the bottom file, it's the same kind of deal. we're going to make an insertion between this UI lists and the UI frags called Uishare, right? We're going to take this, paste that, and then this is Uishare. Over here is also Uishare. And then we're going to go find where else we made these things. So down here, we're going to take this list, or this if and if macro thing, and we're going to go Uishare, and then we're going to just change the number. So this is now 54, 55, 56, and 57. Then we'll go down here, and one more thing, we got to maintain this list as well. So we got to undef this. This is Uishare, and 53, 54, 55, 56, and 57. Okay, we'll close this. Okay, so F macros, top and bottom. Looking at this, we have to see what kind of spot check things have been changed. Is tau sync still 44? Yeah, it is. But PAINT5D is now 50. Whoa. Okay, no, 56. Okay. I was like, oh, I thought it jumped by 2 numbers, and I was a little bit scared. Okay, yeah, so 56. Okay. So for the UI shared code, we're not expecting any type of setup, right? It's just a basically a function. It's just a chunk of functions, right? So when we're thinking about where to put the code for this, so this is our init nuns. So we know it's going to be a init none because we don't have any initialization code. UI list does have initialization code because it's going to set up the glyphs in the texture memory. But right above UI frags, we're going to put UI share, right? So UI share is going to be right above UI frags. So we're going to look between the game cam and UI frags to find the insertion point here for this kind of boilerplate function. So right here, okay, so we got these two things. We'll just copy this, paste this, and then we're going to look for all these kind of like refactor points in this middle section, right? So UI share has an init none function, UI share, because we don't, as far as I'm concerned, we don't need any special initialization logic. We can change our mind on that later, but for now, pretty sure. Okay, so now that that's in there, and we can always procedurally rebuild this whole list, but it just seems to be faster to do it one at a time like this, and rather than have to rebuild it. But we have to be careful that we maintain this list. We have to maintain this list, right? Look at all this. This is crazy, right? And we also have to maintain this list in parallel, because this code here is used to procedurally generate the code down here. So we manually generated it this time, but if we ever need to completely rebuild the list, we could if we want to. Okay. So, excellent. Okay. Okay, yeah. So this is good. Let's go into F macro's bottom. And right, we've interlaced the inits and init nuns, so you can have a roll call of kind of what everything that's here. So 53 is the UI lists. Okay, so after UI lists is going to be UI share. So this is going to be UI share, but it's going to be an init none function. UI share init none. Okay. And UI share is 54. So 54, 55, 56, 50. That bothers me that that number already seemed to be the number. Well, let's not worry about it. Okay. So now we have to actually go into the main file. So the main function file, and find the call sites for these macros. So you saw how big those macro lists were? And this is where we're actually calling them, right? So The reason why we have all that macro wrapper is so that we can succinctly call them all in order, like this. And it's just, we don't have to, I'm too tired for this. There's not as much bloat here. It's all nicely streamlined. But F macros is F macros because we need to wrap it in macros because all these different initializers may or may not exist depending on where we compile in this library chain. Okay, so let's make our insertion. So after 53, so here's 53. So we need a F macros Uishare init none, which takes a 0, right? And that is our new 54 from libchan. So 54, 55, 56, 57. Go. So also we want to maintain another list, which is the control F help. Otherwise, the indirection can make it really hard to figure out where the call site for these functions are. So that's why I have this list. So game cam, UI lists, and then down here is the next one, right? So this needs to be Uishare, and we'll just call it init none, right? So Uishare init none. Uishare is 54. Okay, so we got that. There are still some more things we have to do. There's one kind of tricky thing that we have to do that we may have forgotten, that can really get us. And that is, so you have this like Uishare.fragment shader, right? Well, if we're going to include that, we have to put that into our build script. Now, this isn't a step that we always have to take for everything, but for any kind of shader code, we need to stringify it. So we have a stringification section in our build script. So we got create build system executables, generate hard-coded PNG assets, delete old shaders, and then generate GLSL code from C99 code. So it's this section. And I see we have PAINT5D, fragment shader, UI frags, paint. Now, the order of this doesn't really matter. But I would like to put it in. Looks like I haven't been very good at doing this. So, yeah, I haven't really been good at this. But anyways, UI frags, because UI frags can use Uishare, and Uishare will use tau frag. Right, so Uishare is going to be an abstraction built on top of tau frag to get access to texturized uniform memory that is specific to user interface code. So let's just take this code, duplicate it. And then instead of it being, you know, GPU view, it would be Uishare, right? So since we have very consistent naming conventions, look, I just have to cut and paste, basically, right? Uishare, right? It's all pretty much the same exact code, except we're changing the token in the middle, right? And that is by design, right? We want to make our code as uniform as possible, so it's... Right, we can be a little bit faster if we can just find replace like this, and also less cognitive load, and also easier to find mistakes because everything is just so uniform that if anything pops out of place visually, we know it's probably a mistake in the code. Okay, so I am tired. Yeah, 24 minutes. Do you think we got it? I don't know if we got this. Let's try to... So that's a lot of stuff. That's a lot of stuff. I usually don't do this without making some sort of mistake. But we'll see if we got this. We'll see if we got this the first time. Ooh, first time? First time, nice. So yeah, first time, excellent. Now the thing is, now I'm paranoid, right? I'm paranoid that, well, what if this code, right, is actually not being included? So we're going to intentionally put like a little syntax error in there, and we're going to make sure that it should crash on compile time, because before it even tries to evaluate as shader code, it's going to evaluate it as C99 code. And yeah, we're getting an error. So so that's actually good. That means that it is actually being included in the project like I thought. And so this Uishare fragment shader code is going to be used in by the PAINT5D shader code. So the PAINT5D shader code, we're just going to stack together some stuff, right? So fragment shader common code, fragcom, right? We also want talcom though, right? So Uishare is going to make use of talcom, right? So include, because Uishare is going to build itself off of tau. What is it called? Hold on. Taufrag, yes, Taufrag. It's going to build itself on Taufrag. So if we look at this, where's Taufrag? Here's Taufrag, right? And then fragcom is way up here, right? So yes, it is going to build its so taufrag.fra.string. So it's going to build its, right? So we got a lot of stuff that's being kind of stacked together, right? So the whole point of this kind of thing in the folder here is to glue together all the files that we need, right? So it's a pretty big monster, right? Fragcom, taufrag, Uishare, and PAINT5D. Now, do we really... Actually, no, we don't really need that, do we? Because... So PAINT5D, P5D 10GL.fragment shader code, right? This shader code here is being included in here's fragcom, here's taufrag, here's Uifrags. Oh, I see. So this is never happening, right? We're never actually using this anywhere, right? Like, it's nice that it's here, but it's not like we're gonna... This affects nothing. Pretty sure this affects nothing. This is not... am I wrong here? No, it doesn't affect anything. We don't actually use this. We smash together the UI shader code with the main shader. Yeah, I don't think we actually use this. So I'm just gonna write it like this because I'm I'm pretty sure we don't actually use this, right? So if my assumption's correct, which I think it is, I can still keep this for notes, but if my assumption is correct, then what's going to happen is this will still run, right? This will still run because the other code is correct. It's being... yeah. Okay, so let's just, yeah, because UI frags... Here's the PAINT5D, so this is where Uishare actually needs to be included. Okay, so let's just give that a run and see if we can get this, if I'm correct on that assumption or not. It'll be pretty obvious, right? If I wasn't, yeah, I'm correct on that assumption. So what we're gonna do is just say, well, first of all, we're gonna close this. So this thing here, we're gonna go into, so UI frags PAINT5D. See that shader should use should yeah, so yeah, we don't actually use this at all. So this list should be present in the other code, right? And it almost is, except Uishare. So we got fragcom, taufrag, and uifrag, right? So we want to include it like that, or something like that. I don't know. And there's no code in here, but right. So Uishare can make use of taufrag. Taufrag can make use of fragcommon. So fragcom is the most common, most generic fragment shader code. Taufrag is common code that uses the tau system without much abstraction layered on top of it. Uishare uses taufrag but has abstractions to grab user interface memory rather than the normal memory. So here's the very specific user interface code for PAINT5D, and this is the PAINT5D shader. Okay, cool. So let's make sure that goes together without any problem. And this won't, well, I mean, it could still fail on compile time, but likely what's going to happen here is that if it fails, it's going to fail here. Okay, so that's not failing either. So I'm fairly confident that everything's been kind of stubbed in, right? So now that we have this, what we can do here is we could I'm going to put all this into an opener, right? So I'm going to put all this stuff into an opener so that I can get ready to write this code later. So I'm just going to say Uishare I'm literally just going to make a save state file. So in here, I'm going to do new. I'm going to say edit file, right? So this UI list thing, put that in the edit file, right? uilist.d, okay. So uilist.d, that's done. Okay. UI frags thing, it might be good to look at it anyways, even though I made a note that we don't need to look at that, right? We can whittle it down a little bit more after we have invoked after we've invoked this opener, we can always kind of whittle it down even more. But we're just going to take the files that we have open that kind of like are like, oh, hey, these files are kind of the ones of interest. Especially this one, right? This is the most of interest file, right? Like, if there's any file we want to be looking at right now, it's that one. Uishare.f. This is a collection of frag shader code. So, no need for data here. Reserve the right to change my mind. Okay, so this uishare.data, right? So we're going to save this as well and put it into our opener, but it's not really what we're going to look at, right? The one thing that we really care about right now is this thing, right? Start working here. 2021, 03, 23, right? This is where we want to actually start working. Other thing that kind of is helpful, this thing would be helpful to have open, because it summarizes, it gives us a pretty high-level overview of everything that's involved here. So we're just going to save all this stuff, and we're going to go into AAC 2020 openers folder. So we're going to find this. I don't know if I have a thing. Nope. Okay, so we'll make a thing for it. So okay, so let's go into the AutoHotkey folder. Okay, and we got shortcuts, we got SC files, and then SC files we got openers, right? We got a thing called openers. And by project is this project, and this is the folder we want to next time. Paste line expanded. Working on my shortcuts here on another monitor. Okay, and then within here, let's save this path, cancel. Okay, save, go over here, and this is going to be Uishare 2021-03-23, right? So that's all the stuff that we're probably going to need open to begin work. So we just create a save state for that so that we can use it later. Okay, so now I am really tired. I barely got through that, but I didn't want to be lazy and just be like, hey, I thought I was going to work more on stuff and then I never got to it. So git bash here. Let's commit what we have and then get out of here, right? So not much work, but okay, so we're going to push that up once we get it committed, which is, I don't know, did we do an add? Did we forget to do an add? Yeah, I think we did. So we forgot to do an add, definitely. Yeah, did we forget to do an add? Oh man, I'm tired. Or maybe we didn't. Get status. Get add dot. Okay, and then we can also push this up to kanji coder because it's not broken, right? So git push kanji coder. And after we push it, we'll, I mean, we probably should have done this before, but might as well just double check and make sure that that in fact does still run, right? So we'll double click our build script and we'll make sure that the project is still up and running. And then we'll get out of here, right? So just wanted to put a little bit of time in to feel like, hey, got a little bit done on it. Okay, this is the texture memory debugger, and it's currently focused on a very specific region of memory. And I see that we have bit packed the glyph font into the most significant red bit of some texture memory, and I'm able to render it. That's what that's all about. This is the main editor that we're working on. Still functioning. And also when we go over here too much, right? When we totally compact this to where the sidebar UI can't show up anymore, it just vanishes, right? That's the way it works in there right now. Okay, so now let's close this and let's just say we're done for now. We're done for now. I'm tired. We have some code to get us started, and that's cool and all. But yeah, I'm done for now. So I'm going to stop the stream, title it, and get on out of here.